I didn't do this job because it was convenient. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's incredibly hard. It's a big sacrifice for the family, but I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. Because right now we need young leaders who will speak the truth, sometimes calling out our own party. If we don't have your voice, we will lose this country. And you're seeing that with some of the elections taking place around this country. When you see them electing open communists, when you see money coming in from the Communist Chinese Party, when you see systemic government corruption, I'm telling you right now, we need your voice to fight it.
Can you guys hear me, Arizona? I actually did not expect to get as emotional as I did hitting this stage. So it is so heartfelt and heartwarming to see so many young people on the stage. As Michael Knowles had pointed out, this was Charlie's last event that he had planned prior to the assassination. And as some of you might know, I am one of the few members of Congress that had the privilege of serving alongside Charlie Kirk on those famous college campus tours. Some of you might have seen the photo. It was me, Charlie Kirk, a fold-out table, 4 GoPros. He was wearing a hat that said ICE, and we had a sign that said there are only 2 genders. Which still holds true today. But, I want to point out and just start out with this. Every single person that's walked across this stage was invited here by Charlie Kirk. Yeah, a round of applause for that, because there's a lot of people, and there's been a lot of discussion about that. We'll get to that in a second. But his legacy, even though he's no longer with us, and I would argue that he's in a way better place, but his legacy continuing to shape the future of discourse, dialogue, and policy. You are seeing it play out in real time on stage. We have leading voices in conservative politics, pundits, journalists, personalities, and the ideas being debated are incredibly important. They're important because they impact our everyday lives, whether it be foreign policy, whether it be war, tariffs, free markets, Trump, the future of MAGA. And you don't have to agree with everyone on stage. I might not. But next year, if I could suggest maybe a celebrity conservative boxing match, we can bring in maybe people like Dana White and Joe Rogan. We can get Polly Market to moderate. But in all seriousness, in the UK, we currently have them pushing digital ID. In China, there's a social credit system. In Germany and England, journalists are jailed. If you post a meme, you might have literally the police at your door arresting you. And while their women are being raped because military-aged males fled their failed states and countries only to come to countries in the UK to bring their nonsense with them, here in the United States, we serve, because of the very people on this stage, as a beacon of hope and freedom in Western civilization, and we plan to keep it that way. And if I could just warn you that currently in the Senate, we have Elizabeth Warren, who's been pushing to allow digital ID in the United States of America. We know the dangers of digital ID and what it could mean. It doesn't matter if you're on the left or the right. If they don't like what you're saying, they can silence you. And yet, we just had Speaker Johnson, of which I'm very proud to say, that he has committed to going to literal war with the Senate if they do not codify in the appropriations process a permanent ban in digital ID. And that is exactly what we need to maintain freedom in this country. So, going back to what I was saying earlier, minus the joke about the celebrity boxing, which I'm happy to host, by the way, if they really want to do it. You may not like Tucker Carlson or Ben Shapiro or Steve Bannon or me. But guess what? If the radical left wins, you, us, and them, we all hang together. We can duke it out on stage, but remember the fight ahead. Because we are all in this fight together. And we have crossed this Rubicon, and it's important to remember who the real enemy is, and that is the radical left that killed my friend Charlie Kirk. But it doesn't mean in Congress that we can't address the very issues being debated on stage. And I've thought long and hard about this. See, in my first term in office when I was elected, they tell you a few things. They say never vote against a rule, which is a procedural piece of legislation that allows the big bills to come to the floor. And if you don't like what's in the bill, let's say they put a poison pill in there. For example, in the National Defense Authorization Act, putting in FISA that allowed the unconstitutional surveillance of the American people. If you vote that down, they say don't do that. You won't be added onto your committees. That's actually what happened to me. They kept me on off of House Armed Services because of that. And they also tell you never vote against your own party. Well, within the first year of being elected to Congress, I'm proud to report that I did both. You're welcome. But the very issues being debated on the stage, again, foreign policy, tariffs, whether we're going to be codifying President Trump's executive orders, foreign aid, all of it, it is all tied to one core issue. And I want to be very specific about this issue because I've, again, thought about this. I see how it works in Washington. My first term in office, they tell you those two rules. And then you see that people are getting the special interest money from big pharmaceutical companies or the military industrial complexes only to vote and sell at the American people. And I promise you, the odds are stacked against us up there, only to turn around to see that they are individually stock trading and engage in insider trading, which is illegal for a majority of Americans and benefiting at the expense of the American people, and it has to stop. Not yesterday, not tomorrow. It has to stop right now. And I want to explain to you some of these stats because I think it's important for the American people to know exactly what's happening. Nancy Pelosi. Do you guys like her? It's funny, my husband says the same thing. Nancy Pelosi, by the time that she announced that she was no longer seeking office, had outperformed Warren Buffett. We've nicknamed her the real Wolf of Wall Street. And she's currently outperformed the S&P and made over 17,000% returns on her stock investment. That statistically does not happen unless you are engaged in insider trading. Both Democrat and Republican members of Congress that have promised to protect the American people and our country are making on average 600% on their returns. They sit on committees of jurisdiction that oversee the policy that impacts this country. Do you think they're ever going, first of all, let's just talk about foreign policy, right? We see this debate. Are you pro-Russia? Are you pro-Ukraine? How about you be pro-America and maybe not advocate for foreign wars? How about that? But do you ever expect a sitting member in the House or the Senate to vote for peace when they are personally invested and backed and owned by the military-industrial complex? Do you ever think that's going to happen? The answer is no. And it doesn't happen, and I see it happen every single day. In fact, President Trump's peace plan that he just put forward, he's been trying so hard to index the war in Ukraine, where thousands upon thousands of young men have died on both sides because of what happened with Biden's failed foreign policy, of which, to be clear, they could have stopped the war. We've sent millions and millions of tax dollars over there, and you know what they're doing? They're laundering the money. That's exactly what happened. I'm proud to report I never voted for a single dollar to go to Ukraine, okay? And I still won't vote for that. But you have members of the House and the Senate that are vocally against what President Trump is doing, against what Steve Witkoff is doing, against what Jared Kushner is doing, because they are personally invested and benefiting from a continued conflict in Ukraine, of which we have no business being involved with, of which a peace deal with Russia could mean $2 trillion trade deal for the American people. And that is exactly what we need to be backing. But because they are corrupt and because we haven't fixed it from within our own institution, this war continues and it has to end. What about codifying President Trump's executive orders to cap prescription pricing? People are talking about affordability. President Trump's doing all the heavy tackling and blocking, and yet Congress is so slow to follow through. Why is that? Well, maybe it's because a majority of members of Congress have over $100 million personally invested in their individual stock portfolios within the pharmaceutical companies. Do you ever think they would vote to cap the prescription pricing that would benefit the American people? And the answer is no. And so that is why, after seeing all of this nonsense play out for years, I finally saw, I think it was on that website, Unusual Whales, and I saw my own colleague, a Republican colleague, making a multi-trillion-dollar trade. It was in violation, insider trading, to be exact. And I looked at Tim Burchett, who's a representative from Tennessee. He's actually a really good guy. Yeah, we love Tim Burchett. And I'm literally sitting on the steps of the Capitol. I said, we have to stop this. This cannot continue. And so we did a discharge petition, and I have reached across the aisle, and I have gotten people that you wouldn't believe to sign on to this discharge petition because they understand the problems of this. Well, I'm proud to report that I met with Speaker Johnson at 1 o'clock on Thursday. And the Speaker of the House understands and agrees that this is a problem. And we discussed the piece of legislation that we'll be bringing to the floor in the first quarter of this next year. And after it came out, because Democrats reported that Hakeem Jeffrey, the leader of the Democrat Party, is actively working to block the ban on insider trading, that we will be securing the deal in the House Republican majority to ban insider trading for members of Congress from ever happening again in the United States of America. Thank you. And yes, that will impact the future of this nation for the better, because everything that I laid out earlier, everything being debated on stage, it's all correlated. And we hope to leave the institution in a better place than when we got it. And I promise you, I've told you guys this before, I definitely don't want to do this. You know, I'm a little bit vain. I'm getting white hair because of the stress. You guys are supposed to back me up on that one. I guess not. I'll have to talk to my stylist. But in addition to that, more importantly, we are doing this on behalf of the American people. Over 86% of Americans support this. Shoot, President Donald Trump supports this. In fact, when he tweeted about it, some of my Republican colleagues got a little bit nervous about it. So thank you, Mr. President. We love Donald Trump. Never forget, Charlie's with Donald Trump since day one. We're going to be with him till the very end. That's right. A round of applause for that. And since I brought up the speaker real quick, and I know that you guys are all huge fans of Turning Point, but more importantly, I want to record this and send it to him, so I need you guys to get a little vocal. Do you think the Speaker of the House should put a statue of Charlie Kirk in the U.S. Capitol? Because we've been having issues getting it done. I want you to know I'm sending him that, but when he speaks tomorrow, you need to do the exact same thing. I swear you better do it. Mike, you know I'm playing with you, but we're really serious about that. But there is a fight ahead. That fight is reforming the Congress in itself. So it represents, and it's represented by people like you and me, not people from Wall Street, and definitely not people from K Street. It means the candidates in the midterms matter. I've actually, I typically, politics especially because it's so nasty, but you have to get involved in these Republican primaries, especially when there's open seats. And so I know Turning Point Action has made endorsements in some of these races. I personally endorsed Joe Mitchell in Iowa, Jesse Elbin in Wisconsin. I'm looking at a Texas 19th seat with Tom Sells about endorsing there. But I want to be very specific about what we need candidates to understand. Because look, there's also these cases of we have candidates, the far left that's running. I was actually talking to a moderate Democrat. And the moderate Democrats, the ones that still believe in this country, and yes, there's very few of them left in the House of Representatives. One of them said, Anna, if you think some of the people in office are bad now, wait till you see who they're recruiting for the midterm elections. Charlie had this unique gift of foresight. And I remember debating, being on college campuses and being at debates with him, and then hearing him also tell his supporters and donors, he would say, socialism's real, and these kids are embracing it, and you'll see it in Congress one day. And he's right, and we're seeing it every single day. And I'm living through what he had predicted to be the future of this country. We're going to get into what he predicted also the fight ahead would be, because we're going to be recruiting you guys to help directly with that. But we need candidates that we're recruiting and endorsing and that will win these elections. Because look, if these guys win again, we're going to revert right back to whatever Biden was, plus Obama, plus Soros, plus everything in between. And it's going to be bad news for all of us. But I need candidates that we're endorsing and candidates that are winning to understand a few things. First one, trans terrorism is real. It murdered Charlie Kirk. Tyler Robinson is a trans terrorist that murdered Charlie Kirk because he was speaking the truth, and it needs to be called out and condemned for exactly what it is. Thank you. Trans terrorism murdered those innocent Christian children because they were targeted and easy targets. And we need to condemn it and ensure that it never happens again. And by the way, if you think giving a child hormones and cutting off their genitals is humane or loving, you are a sick and twisted person and you do not deserve to be a parent. We need candidates who will understand, and Charlie called this out for exactly what this is. But that jihad and radical terrorist ideology is a threat to this country and a threat to the West and will not work in a divine and civilized Western civilization. You cannot allow in literal terrorists on the watch list and release them into the United States just like the Biden administration did and not expect bad things to happen. Look no further at what just happened in Australia. Look no further at what just happened with our amazing National Guards members. Rest in peace to the beautiful soul that was murdered as a result of failed policy and allowing these awful people into this country. Terrorists are not our friends, to include narco-terrorists. We need people that understand, and candidate elected to office that understand peace through strength means pursuing peace first at all costs. I work with way too many neocons, and I refuse to accept that neocons is the face of this party. I think Nikki Haley found that out the hard way. And don't worry, Lindsey Graham, we know you got the endorsement, but you're fair game next time. I think that was a pretty fair joke. I heard some of you laugh at it. I also want candidates that will vote down legislation that doesn't contain a permanent ban on central bank digital currencies, because again, in places like the EU, the UK, and China, that is where they are all going. Their citizens are oppressed, and candidates that will take a stand and understand that freedom is not a government-given right. It is a God-given right. That is a big difference. We want candidates that understand that strong immigration is important to a nation and that borders matter. If you come here, you embrace our culture and you assimilate and you become an American citizen and you put that first and foremost. But that also means that if you are here as a citizen, that you contribute to society and you do not become a permanent member of the welfare state. And if you're a young man especially, it might work in the United Kingdom where you can go in and rape women and get away with it, but it does not work here in the United States. You do not bring your failed state policies to the United States of America and expect to stay here. And lastly, I want candidates that will embrace fellow politicians from around the world who believe in the sovereignty of their nations and the inalienable rights of their citizens, their people, and understand that technocracy and globalism is not the way. Which is why in March, I'm happy to announce, after meeting with some members of the AfD, and don't listen to the media, the AfD are not Nazis, they are not alt-right, they are simply people that believe in saving Germany. But not just them, members from around the world, whether it's South America, the European Union, Australia, and even South Africa, that we will have an alliance conference of sovereign nations in Washington, D.C., where we will be bringing in hopefully hundreds of members from these countries, because Davos think tanks and the World Economic Forum think the Great Reset is a good idea, and it's not. It's creepy, and they can keep their bug-eating dystopian freak show politics to themselves. We don't want it. So that's it. That's the plan, and that's the fight ahead. So yeah, duke it out on stage. We'll watch the clips, but pad up, because right now we're jumping right back into the fight. And President Trump, we are blessed to have him to lead this nation, but he's not going to be here forever, which means you are all responsible for carrying the torch. That is what Charlie always said. It's your fight too. That's why he set up these conferences. And just so you know, every single person on the stage has prayed for Erica Kirk. We love Erica Kirk. She's doing amazing for this organization, and Turning Point will not fail because of her leadership. So, God bless you all. Don't let this opportunity or experience go to waste. God bless the great United States of America, and also JD Vance 2028.